Welcome to the Emergency Management Do One Thing personal video training series. My name is Quentin Graham. As an emergency manager, it is our goal to provide continuous training towards making a disaster resilient installation. What this means is that as an installation team, we respond together to quickly save lives, mitigate the hazard, and return to normal operations. Because we, the installations, are the backbone for the warfighter. This series focuses on completing one thing each month to become more prepared. We use the Do One Thing program. Now, for the next essential topic, your instructor.
Okay, well, we're back here again, and our next month we have a new topic, and that is step 3, which is our facilities. So it's on our 12-step program to kind of do one thing about our organizations and businesses and how to improve them. So we're going to look at, very specifically, our goal for step 3 is to take steps before, during, and after disaster to keep your business running. Even if you and your employees can't get to your normal work site, what are some other things that we can do to actually kind of move things along? Why protect my facility, my buildings, and everything else? If your facility is damaged, how will you continue to operate? What are some things that we can actually do, and what are some of the things that we can put into place? And there's some tools that we've got in that tool bag. So taking steps to protect your building and its contents ahead of time can get you back into your facility a lot faster. Alternate work sites, telecommuting, even working from a vehicle are all potential solutions, but need planning ahead of time to make them successful. And how do we make that successful? So the location may be one of your business's most valuable assets. It could also be a liability if you're in a hazard-prone area. And what are those hazards for that specific area that you're in? And if you haven't already done so, identify what hazards that might affect your facilities. And really look at your facilities and look at them really hard. So we're going to choose one thing to do this month. We're going to take steps to protect your building from hazards. So we're going to look specifically at your building. So identify alternate work sites in the event that your building becomes unusable. What are some other places you can actually do your job and get the mission done? So consider risk when choosing a new business location or a new location that we can actually do this. So take steps to protect your building from a hazard. So there's some things here. Mitigation is a process of protecting your property by reducing the impact that disasters will have. So it's like shoring up the walls or making sure doors are closed during high winds events, stuff like that can all help. Researching shows that every dollar spent on mitigation ahead of time saves $4 when a disaster strikes, and that's a FEMA study that was done there. Decide how much that you can invest now and develop a plan to keep investing over time. Even if you can't do everything, every small step that we can take to make your business more resilient. Remember, a resilient community bounces back a lot easier, which means every one of these things that we're doing as a 12-step piece is very important. So if we own the building, which we do, talk to contractor about the cost of structural mitigation, like earthquake or flooding retrofitting, which is our public works department. Hurricane shutters or high wind type shutters or doors or things that if you're noticing anything that doesn't look right, make sure that public work knows on it. Fire suppression system, make sure they're up and working and that we're checking them and that they're operational and everything else. So fire department kind of looks at a lot of that stuff. So plan for those as capital improvements, and we have a process for that. Capital improvement projects are made in the future, and we put that as part of our strategic planning. So if you don't own the building your business is in, which most of them we do. We talked about the building owner for those migration pieces. Protecting their own business assets is by mitigating it as well as yours, because it's kind of a group thing if we're having to have rented buildings or whatever else for some of those other type of facilities that may be out there that's listening in. There are many things that you can do that are less costly. A lot of them are procedural changes and stuff like that we can just put into place that mitigate a lot of stuff, and a lot of the stuff that we can do don't really cost a lot of money. So, but they can provide big savings in preventing damage. So, Uh, Make sure that there are working fire extinguishers through your facility, approximately about every 50 feet or so, and that staff is trained on in how to use them and when to use them. Make sure everyone also stands when a fire is too big to try to use a fire extinguisher. Contact your local fire department and see if they can offer any training. But basically, we kind of tell everybody that if fire extinguishers are for escape use. The fire extinguishers are made to kind of get you out of the building and get other people to safety, not to really fight the fire. Unless it's like a small, really dinky fire that you spray it and it goes out. But if that fire is way too big, definitely remember, fire extinguishers for the guys escape use unit. Straps to fasten down shelves, filing cabinets, cubicles, tabletop equipment to prevent losses in an earthquake or tornado. Especially if we, putting heavy stuff more on the bottom than on the top, and that kind of helps with a lot of that type of stuff. And here's some websites to visit. So, install flood drain plugs and floor drains to prevent sanitary or storm sewer backups into your building, so that way you kind of screw it down and it creates pressure on that, so that way if something's happening, then we can kind of lock that stuff down. And task number 2 is identify alternate work sites in the event that your building becomes unusable. Now, what kind of space and everything else. And your emergency manager sends out, I send out a sheet that kind of asks you some of these questions. So, business may be inaccessible or disaster for a number of reasons. The building itself may be damaged, or damage to the surrounding neighborhood or roads that could prevent access, or release of hazardous materials or biohazards which contaminate your building. Power may be out, making it impossible for you to continue to operate from that location. So there's a lot of things, but we need to know what your requirements are so that we can kind of mitigate against some of that. So if you can't get into your building, can you stay in business? Can we keep what you're doing operating, but can we do it from another site? Can we do it in another location? Make a plan to relocate your critical operations to another site. We have a lot of acreage and everything else, like a military base. Can we move that to another type of a building or a structure or another part of the base? Look for sites that will support your critical systems, customer accessibility, phones, computers, internet access, adequate power, workspace, those type of things we all consider, and then we got a spreadsheet that we fill out for that. If you have employees with disabilities, think about what accessibility issues might exist with an alternate site and what adaptive technology that might be needed. The other thing is consider allowing employees to work from home. If working from home is an option, I know there's very limited jobs that we can actually do that with, but if it's a possibility, if at least for a short duration, then we can still get work done. Plan ahead to make sure staff will have access to software systems, laptops, whatever. There's a process that is there for it, but but as long as they can do their jobs, at least in the most sense, then maybe we can besides them just being on admin leave. So can your internal email system be accessed from an outside site? Of course ours can, and a lot of other people can. So what about customer records and other vital information? So can you get to, if you got SharePoint or any other type of sites or whatever else that we can do? If not, consider backing up those vital records, and also I would consider backing them up regularly to an outside location anyways. I know our Duum staff does very good job at backing up a lot of those records and keeping them on file in case they have to, and they keep them stored in a very safe facility. So if records are backed up to a server on your site, we do that. You may want to consider an alternate backup site anyways, and we also do that, and just in case your building is damaged. But we don't nothing is backed up that's on anybody's the business computer that you utilize at your desk. So it might be something that you consider yourself, is backing up a lot of that other stuff that's on that, because you never know when the computer is going to crash anyways. So task 3 is consider risk when choosing a new business location. So moving to a new location is a great opportunity. Protect your business from future disasters. Find out whether prospective sites are in a floodplain by calling emergency management office, which for our base is very limited as to where we're at. If we have to go to off-site, we have to move something off there, then we'll ask the realtor if the building has ever been affected by a disaster before. If we're leasing, which maybe we are, maybe we aren't, but a lot of other type of organizations, they have a lease. Make sure it clearly states who's responsible for damage to the building, and prefer providing the insurance and for that building being rebuilt or whatever it may be, so that it can be done. If there's flood insurance on the building, find out if it covers contents as well as the building for itself, because if it's a government entity inside that building, it's just an assumption that, oh well, this is what we can do. But it's always a good thing to make sure you're reading into those contracts from a leadership perspective and seeing what can we do and what stuff is in there that we have to consider in the event of that kind of disaster. So task 3, consider risk when choosing the new business location, is if the lease binds you to the property even when damaged, I would suggest not signing that. Make sure you can be released from the lease if the building is damaged, or if an important adjoining business property which operates as a magnet is not repaired with a specific time period, 30, 60, 90 days. So we can actually move your location. We don't really have that worry here on an installation, but a lot of our offsite type things, if there is offsites, then they need to, and if they don't own the building or the structure or whatever else, they need to take that into consideration. So while building a new facility or renovating an old one, we definitely look at the flood, storm, earthquake, fire-resistant materials, and everything else. We have a whole construction method on that. So make sure our buildings meet or exceed the local building codes. We also have building codes for new construction. So our public works department definitely looks at all that if we have to go down that road. So our next step is step 4, insurance. And this may sound weird because we're a government type organization, but finding the capital to make repairs and restore vital resources can be difficult after a disaster. Just look at Tyndall Air Force Base. They've been trying to get up and operational for a while, and that's several years after that hurricane had hit down there. And so military bases can be affected just as well as any type of business, because you got to look at it from that perspective. It is critical for businesses to move quickly in reopening their doors, and so that they can show that we're resilient. We can do this, even if it's just a little bit in increments. Just like Tyndall Air Force Base, they're not completely operational still, but they are operational. They're able to do a lot of stuff that they were previously do. They just can't do everything that they had done previously to the hurricane that went through there. So having right insurance and necessary amount of coverage can be the difference between success and failure. So making sure that we know where to get that capital, that money, or for those type of stuff that we need to get done. So kind of having that in our hip pocket. Well, this is Quentin Graham, your favorite emergency manager from Sea Army Depot, and this is Do One Thing at www.doonething.com, and a shout out there for ready.army.mil, and just for everybody out there, I'll see you next month.